be on CP time. You see what I'm saying? Usually you be on CP time, we show up a little late. You feel me? Today, I'm so passionately moved and excited to talk with y'all tonight. Education is elevation. This is the first episode of Office Hours. I promise y'all the next time y'all see me for Office Hours, it won't look this way. It'll be a lot more, you feel me, feng shui to it. But there's been a lot of strategic shenanigans that's happened. And I think that we have to be very unapologetic with how we speak truth to power. When innocent civilians that were Israelis were being, you feel me, slain, there was a lot of individuals that were able to simply talk about standing with Israel. And I think that, you feel me, people was like, that's fine, that's cool. For me, I'm perplexed to see the hesitancy of people talking about standing with Palestine when there are astronomically more, you feel me, innocent civilians being slain, and that all of a sudden it becomes too complex, it becomes too much. This live is dedicated for the individuals that don't have a lot of knowledge on this topic and you want to learn. It's not just me though, you feel me? I brought, you feel me, two individuals with me. Y'all introduce yourselves.
What's up, guys? My name is Arabic McLovin. I am usually on TikTok, and I'm a Palestinian. I wouldn't call myself for sure an activist, but I am Palestinian, and my family has experienced the Nakba, and I'm here today to talk with Consciously James.
Awesome. Hi, I'm James. I mainly also do TikTok. As well as like political organizing and commentary. I do very far left organizing in the cities that I'm in. So it's kind of what I do, but I also make a lot of videos doing like educational content, political commentary, day-to-day stuff that focuses at this point mainly on Palestine.
Yeah. And without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. As a Black person, I've been asked 50 million times, man, hey, why you don't just mind your business? What's going on between Israel and Palestine ain't got nothing to do with you. We got our own problems. Flint got dirty water still. Excuse me. We still dealing with police brutality, and we still got old books. Why do we care about what's going on in this region of the world? This first video is specifically for y'all. Rest in peace to Huey P. Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party. You know, if you're familiar with my content, you know, I always bring him up and talk about him, but he said, think globally and act locally. Think globally and act
Palestinian people were able to give Black people tips on how to combat police force during Black Lives Matter, right? But have you ever considered why that might be the case? Did you know that thousands of U.S. police and law enforcement are trained by Israeli officials? Either in Israel or they come over here to train them on our land? Sit with that. Sit with that for 1 second. Thousands of U.S. law enforcement officials, a policing system known for brutalizing Black and brown people that has roots in the KKK, trained by Israeli police that have been cited multiple times for their excessive use and torture, even against children, against peaceful protesting, their excessive surveillance. What does that tell you? Please think about it. Turn it on. What does that tell you? One of the biggest social movements in this century, Black Lives Matter, about a policing system in a white supremacist, Western imperialistic country known for unjustly killing and disenfranchising Black people, an oppressed group in said country, being trained by forces over here that are currently disenfranchising an entire group of people, right? Murdering them, sexually assaulting them, cutting off supplies, food, electricity. Not only the people that they're occupying and oppressing, dealing with violence, no, the citizens of that country where those forces exist, right? The Israeli forces, also now dealing with violence. And because of their actions, right, Zionistic actions, you've got a group of people that have historically been marginalized, Jewish people, that being conflated with that. And that's harming them now. And then going back 70.
And while we're talking about conflation, just want to give some amazing disclaimers right now to make sure that words are being taken purposefully and that there are not any confusion in what's being said and what's being, you feel me, presumed. When we talk about Zionism, when we talk about Zionists, we know that they are not synonymous with Jewish people or the Jewish identity. When we talk about, you know, being critical with Zionist or Zionism, we recognize that this is not a conflation to Judaism or individuals that believe in Judaism. We are talking specifically about how an idea of a state has justified the displacement of individuals and people for how many years? How many years we got, James? How many years? 78, 75?
75 on paper since establishment, but realistically closer to about 100 years.
Closer to about 100 years. You see what I'm saying? What's important is that every time we hear about the Israeli occupation of Palestine, anything that Israel does is always kind of structured in the idea that Israel deserves to be able to defend itself and that it's doing it in response to Hamas. What's important is that when we start talking about conflation, is that, hey, Palestinian people are not synonymous with Hamas. You see what I'm saying? Just like, you know, the Israel state is not synonymous with Jewish people. But it's something important that I want to make sure that I brought these two individuals in, because I acknowledge that when we start engaging with the word terrorism, and it's always already used in proximity to Muslim people or people of Arabic descent, I call that Islamophobia. And what I'm recognizing right now is a lot of Islamophobia in the game. In McLovin, specifically, you feel me? You know what? I don't get ahead of myself. Actually, I don't get ahead of myself. I got a video for that. I got a video for that.
Was even created was due to Western imperialistic forces butting their way in, drafting agreements for groups that neither of them were part of because they occupied that land during a world war. And then on top of all this, if you say you don't stand with this, you don't stand with Israel, you don't stand with occupation, you are at risk for losing your job, security, safety. Are you seeing the through line of white supremacist, Western imperialistic influence? Are you connecting the dots? Are you seeing where the power imbalance lies? And if you are seeing it, what does this tell you?
Any comments? That was from that brown girl.
So man, a lot to unpack, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
There's again the history between settler colonial states, you know, and you can categorize these two types of them, right? One are completed and successful, right, which is a shame, right? And then the other are in process, right? So the United States of America, Canada, and Australia are two successfully colonized states, right? I know James is looking at me like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But what I mean by that,
then these folks looking like, hold on now, we don't live in no post.
I don't want
to. Yeah.
Just elaborate what I mean by successful.
Sure.
I mean they have succeeded in eradicating more than 90% of the indigenous population to the point where they've pushed them into corners. And strip them of their rights to the point where them fighting back and reclaiming 100% of their land back is, how do I even formulate that? You know what I'm trying to say, right? And so with Israel being a settler colonial state, it now becomes, they obviously, we still, we are still Palestinian wise, we are still 14 million strong, you know, between 2 million in the West Bank, 2 million in Gaza, and then the rest of us is scattered between Lebanon, Jordan, and other, you know, diaspora populations, right? And so when you look at that, you kind of see the connection and why these states, even in any UN proposal, why they back each other up so aggressively, why the United States constantly uses its veto power in defense of Israel and whatever solution the UN is trying to make. And I'm saying, when the UN gets together, I'm talking about not all votes in favor of a certain type of resolution, whether it be a ceasefire, and then the one veto power is the United States. And that thwarts every single type of us moving forward, right? And this is just what this woman is talking about is just an example of just how that connection moves forward in terms of riot control equipment, right? Israel's #1 export is I don't know if I believe it's military. It's military. It's military products, right?
Yeah, arms dealers, right?
And you know, the testing ground for these arms is us. It's us in the West Bank and in Gaza. And when they make a shiny new toy, the way they test it on human bodies is with us, right? So, and then they sell it to the United States for them to use on black and brown people in the United States, because that's another connection. So we can unravel these connections forever. You know what I'm saying? Between the United States military and police forces, and the Israeli IDF and police force that's functioning there. James, if you can elaborate on.
Yeah, I'm really excited to. I read a book recently about this entire process. If you ever get a chance, it's called The Palestine Laboratory. It's a pretty good book. I have my criticisms at points, but I think it's broadly a really good analysis of like Israeli arms and manufacturing, and like Israeli arms trade throughout the world. People, I think, don't realize that Israel exists largely as like an imperialist outpost where it functions in a way that benefits Western empire in a very unique fashion. Part of that is in arms trade. Israel is one of the world's largest arms dealers in of any entity and or country, and it's something that's really been notable throughout history. Like a lot of, for lack of better words, right? It's like basically every like fucked up thing that has occurred. I'm sorry if I don't know if I can curse or not. Like throughout history,
Fucked up, man. Should be fucked up, man. You
okay,
got
cool. But every terrible atrocity, every right wing government that like has been functionally either propped up or supported by the United States in some fashion usually is like done through Israeli arms. Like South America is a really interesting example, right? So like for a long time, like Israeli connections and arms were like brought in through CIA arrangements to be able to facilitate like arms transfers that the CIA saw as being like a little bit too difficult to make on their own end. Like Israeli arms manufacturers played like a significant role in like Chile, for example, and other governments all across Latin America. There's like a lot of evidence of like Israeli weapons being kind of like throughout there, Africa as well. There were Israeli arms in Rwanda at the time of the genocide in Rwanda in the 90s, for example. A lot of other connections, obviously. But like broadly, the Israeli government functions really heavily with the United States in regards to like arms transfers, in regards to police training. It's a dynamic called the deadly exchange, right? So starting in especially like post 9/11, Israeli occupational forces started training with U.S. police departments, U.S. officials, and basically trying to like help them outfit like how they go about counterterrorism strategy. So it's different in every state, every city, every department. DC Capitol Police are usually IDF trained. I say IDF is occupational; it's not defensive. My hometown, Philadelphia, like Philly PD is on the deadly exchange. Baltimore, deadly exchange. Georgia, Atlanta is a really good case actually of deadly exchange. Like the surveillance apparatus or the kind of surveillance systems that have been deployed by the Atlanta PD in like particularly downtown Atlanta and like collecting like CCTV footage is modeled in a lot of ways off of Israeli headquarters and command and control centers in Jerusalem, for example. And it goes beyond just like the tactics, tech as well, like things like skunk odor, like gas, things like surveillance equipment, different things like that. Israel, as of late, has become like a major dealer of surveillance tech, just particularly to like nefarious actors all over the world that have been used to crack down on dissidents, quote unquote, within these countries. But it's a really interesting thing. Israel also has like really, this is a tangent, of course, but Israel also has really interesting connections with the South African apartheid government. It was one of its primary arms dealers, especially through the late 70s and early 80s, as the government collapsed functionally.
It ain't so.
Yeah. Israel was like one of the primary arms dealers for years. The South African apartheid government.
Settler solidarity.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's actually like, so the first prime minister from South Africa to visit Israel was PM John Forster. And he was an outright fascist who was like pro-Germany during World War II. And it's like a really weird history with him. But he visited Israel, so-called Israel, and then ended up going to like the Holocaust memorial in, I believe, Jerusalem. Comes home, and a couple of months later, the the South African government posts statements basically saying that Israel and South Africa are in very similar situations, as they're situated in hostile worlds surrounded by predominantly brown people. It's like the South Africans were a lot more open about their, I think, racism for the early years, especially the apartheid South African government. But Israel for years became like a primary arms dealer and also traded nuclear technology with the South African government, which is a whole other historical footnote.
Yeah,
South Africa's like nuclear weapons development.
I seen too that in the past couple of days that there was some nuclear weapons that was used in Palestine and in Gaza. Actually, I saw there was some white smoke or like a white substance that made.
Oh yeah, you might phosphorus. Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah, absolutely. But Israel also maintains like a massive nuclear arsenal. It's like part of the larger problem of like how to deal with it as a settler colonial entity. Throughout the 60s, especially up to the 80s, like Israel was like functionally cooperating with the South African government where they were trading tech basically for South African resources, uranium ore, as well as just like general capital. The general transaction was that South Africa had the resources, Israel had the tech. A lot of tech they were able to acquire from the French connection throughout the 50s and 60s. But it's interesting that like a lot of the South African nuclear weapons development and their program was almost entirely reliant on Israeli technical expertise, as well as a lot of their arms program, especially during the Brush War. Israeli advisors were on the ground assisting South African forces. There are like quotes from South African leaders talking about how they've seen no better example of like a fighting force than the men of the Israeli Defense Forces. Like it's a whole thing. And Israeli planners actually, when they visited South Africa, took a lot of the apartheid management structures and brought it back into Palestine. So you see like West Bank, like a lot of the West Bank looks a lot like Bantustan's, like in South Africa at the time. And a lot of that is very intentional. It's like Israelis, like the settler colonies trade tech, tactics, things like that. And, you know, when South Africa fell, like it was a huge blow to the Israeli arms industry because they were feeding them everything from like just general weapons to like aircraft and stuff up to the 80, like up till 81.
When I was in college, I was in policy debate. When we talked about international relations, there was always miscalc type of scenarios that we had. There was always these scenarios that would come about, and these scenarios would trigger nuclear war. And it was always interesting in how they talked about Iran specifically. And in the last couple of days, what I've learned about international relations and how Iran is tied to Hamas and tied to, you feel me, I guess, uniting the Arab world, quote unquote. It's been very interesting to see how a lot of our citizens here in America has been duped into thinking about how you know that right now is so complicated. It's a holy war that goes back 2,000 years. Last time I checked, didn't America have separation of church and state? Last time I checked, didn't America outlaw being able to use taxpayers' dollars to fund faith causes? Right. So if the American government is giving $3.8 billion to Israel to fund a quote unquote holy war, wouldn't that be unconstitutional?
Depends on how you look at it.
I guess I don't know, man. It depends on how you cut it.
I think anybody who sees it will be deeply moved by Gabor Mate's wisdom and truth.
But I'm personally a Holocaust survivor as an infant. I barely survived.
Hey, the purpose of showing this video right now, into y'all too, feel free to let me know when y'all want to say anything. But the purpose of showing this video right now is that I know there's a lot of flattening of how the narrative is being shaped around who and what is able to validate what in terms of the existence of Israel and what in terms of resistance of Palestinian people. And I acknowledge that it's being made very cut and dry, as if there are not individuals in Israel that recognizes what the state of Israel is doing to Palestinian people is wild and foul, and acting as if there are not people that are proud Jewish individuals that also don't recognize and see the type of a barbaric, terroristic, dehumanizing thing that's happening to, Palestinian people. The reason why I'm showing this, yes, this right now, you feel me, is, Gabriel Mate. I'm saying his name wrong, country as hell, excuse me. But the reason why I'm showing him is that it's important to acknowledge that there is a multiplicity of voices on this topic, and that not all Jewish people think the same. Just like not all Black folks think the same.
My grandparents were killed in Auschwitz, and most of my extended family was killed. I became a Zionist. This dream of the Jewish people resurrected in their historical homeland, and the barbed wire of Auschwitz being replaced by the boundaries of a Jewish state with a powerful army. And then I found out that it wasn't exactly like that. That in order to make this Jewish dream a reality, we had to visit a nightmare on the local population. And there's no way you could have ever created a Jewish state without oppressing and expelling the local population. Jewish Israeli historians have shown without a doubt that the expulsion of the Palestinians was persistent, it was pervasive, it was cruel, it was murderous, and with deliberate attempt. So that's what's called the Nakba in Arabic, the disaster or the catastrophe. There's a law that you cannot deny the Holocaust. But in Israel, you're not allowed to mention the Nakba, even though it was at the very basis of the foundation of the state. I visited the occupied territories, Russell, during the first Intifada. I cried every day for 2 weeks at what I saw. The brutality of the occupation, the petty harassment, the murderousness of it, or cutting down of Palestinian olive groves, the denial of water rights, the humiliations. And this went on, and it's much worse now than it was then. It's the longest ethnic cleansing operation in the 20th and 21st centuries. I could land in Tel Aviv tomorrow and demand citizenship under the law of the right of return. But my Palestinian friend in Vancouver, Hannah Kawas, who was born in Jerusalem, can't even visit. Now, if I have the right to return after 2,000 years, how come Hannah hasn't got the right to return after 70 years? So then you have these miserable people packed into this horrible, people call it the world's largest outdoor prison, which is what it is. You don't have to support Hamas policies to stand up for Palestinian rights. That's a complete falsity. If you take the worst thing you can say about Hamas, multiplied by 1,000 times, and it still will not meet the Israeli repression and killing and dispossession of Palestinians.
1,000 times. 1,000 times. Before I even let him finish, McLovin, when I seen one of your videos, bro, and you talked about your dad being a part of the Nakba, it really made me zoom back, you know what I'm saying, and really just think about the implications of what's going on right now. Really, just like it made me think about it, man.
So we could see like a parallel. So I'll tell you a little bit more about my father. My father was from a small village named Hatta, which is now leveled. Like it's not even. It's one of there's actually a book. If you go in Jerusalem, there's a little shop, and in that shop there's like little tokens and proof of that we had a state. Because one of the biggest arguments is that there was no Palestinian state. You guys never had it. You guys were never. At first, there was a slogan, you know, a people without a land for a land without a people, or something along the lines of that. But that was proven to be absolutely false because the land did have a people, and it was us. And you know, my dad. If you go in there, there's like a little book of a registry, and it's filled with more than 500 villages of that are no longer existing, and one of those villages is my village, right? This was, you know, when the war started, him and his family moved inside the West Bank, and what would happen is, because all of the farming land was taken, because my dad was a farmer, and even when you go to my house, if you look in the back, he unearthed the entire thing, and he still farms to this day. That's his connection to it. And he has to go. What happened was, before then, the West Bank, on the eastern side of the West Bank, there was no border, as you see it, between Jordan and Palestine. And what happened in the summer, him and my grandfather would go all the way to Jordan, farm, you know, yield the crop, and then come back. The issue was one time they went, And then that's when the border closed and he was never allowed back. You get what I'm trying to say? And this was a game of people would come to the village and be like, listen, you guys have to move because the occupational forces are coming through, and just leave for now. And then when we fix this issue, you guys can come back. Right. And it was a constant evacuation, moving from village to village to village until we couldn't move any longer. And we never came back. And the parallel you're going to see today is because I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mehdi Hassan. He is an MSNBC reporter. You can even look it up. He basically does an interview with James, please remind me. He does an interview with the former Israeli official. Yeah, it's a former Israeli official. He does an interview with him. Point is, he goes, what's the solution? He goes, move them to the south, move the Gazans to the south of Gaza, and then open up the Sinai, and then we're going to allow them to go into the Sinai Peninsula, which is Egypt, right? We're going to move them into Egypt, make a camp there for them, and then when this is all over, they can move back. And my father took one look at this, and he looked at it, he said, they're lying. They're gonna kick them. If they leave right now, and they go into Egypt, it's now Egypt's problem. They're gonna close that Rafah border, and then they're gonna expel them, and then they're gonna colonize that Gaza Strip, because that's what they want. It's at the end of it, that's all they want. And I can whenever a Zionist tells you they believe in a two-state solution or a one-state solution, they lie. And every action that their right-wing government has taken, it proves that lie. If they had any intention of giving us a state of our own, they would not build those settlements in the West Bank. They would not subsidize them by a government. They would not enact control on the West Bank. And if they had any intention of building one state where we could all live together democratically, they would. You know what? Even my dad said, he said, if they want, annex the West Bank and annex the Gaza Strip and give them citizenships. The state of Israel would cease to exist, because once they give 4 million Palestinian citizenship, plus the 2 million that already live within mainland Israel, right? Once they give this, they lose control of the country because we become the majority. And they would never allow that to happen. The only path forward for this state is another Nakba. They only have three options. Either make our life so miserable that we leave, make our life so miserable that we fight back and they have a justification to kill us, or continue this basic, or they kick us out, which is either or, you know.
It's like not unique though, like, you know what I mean?
And in the past, nations were able to do this, you know, under the table. No, I mean, not under the table, but they were able to do this without. And by the time the world found out, it was too late. Like, yeah, bitch, we did it. So what? It happened. Whatever happened, happened. You can't bring them back to life. We took the land, so live with it, right? Yeah. The reason they're not able to do this on a full scale, which is why it's the longest ethnic cleansing that you guys have seen, the reason why they're not supposed to do this is because of this. Now in today's time, everything you do is publicized, everything. And now they're waging, this past 20, 30 years, they've been waging this media war that, in my opinion, they've been losing horrifically.
Yeah, they just started losing now. I think that what the past 2 weeks have shown me is that a lot of the people in power that are able to cultivate narratives that's usually able to benefit from those narratives, they having a knee-jerk reaction, trying to figure out what the hell they gonna do, because what they used to spoon feeding us with, we're not easily going with it. When Joe Biden took his ass up there this morning and lied and said that the bomb was set by Hamas, it's like, hey man, listen. Right now, you engaging in a certain level of racism that you believe these people are so stupid and irrational, they killed their own people. So you believe you're going to sit there and tell us as if the Israeli forces hasn't been warning them to evacuate hospitals? So you're going to sit down there and tell us now, like the Palestinian prime minister wasn't told that if he needs to, now y'all playing with us. Now y'all playing with us to a point where I think it makes not only your words ringing long, but the idea of them lying. Before I let this man, you know what I'm saying, play what he's saying and we get back to this conversation, it's important to recognize in the past week, the Israeli Defense Forces has done some devilish lies that has led to thousands of people dying. The best example I can give is multiple, though, guys. There's multiples watching this video. There are multiple examples that illustrate what McLovin just said about how they lie and how his daddy knew they was lying. They told these people they had 24 hours to evacuate. It's important to note that most of the people in the Gaza Strip is kids because the conditions are so bad that people don't live that long. They told them they had 2 routes to leave. And what they do to the routes, McLovin?
They committed airstrikes against them. And I tried to make a video about it, but TikTok is really my only platform, and it's very restrictive on what I can show people. And I'm getting real sick and tired of just talking about these deaths as like a number, because people are starting to get desensitized. It's just 200 dead, 300 dead, 500 dead. I feel like the only way that I could show people is just show them the footage. And even in the hospital bombing, some guy, some guy is walking around with 2 plastic bags, a father walking around with 2 bags filled with the body parts of his, whatever was left of his son. He had to fill it and to give him a proper burial. And I didn't even show anything. I just showed the part and the video got muted. So it's the most malicious, insidious thing that you can do. You tell them to evacuate. You give them no time to evacuate. You tell the hospitals to evacuate. The hospitals can't evacuate because they have people on life support.
Because you just bombed them.
The hospitals can't evacuate. You have them on life support. Mind you, 9 people in that hospital were Israelis, by the way. The so-called the hostages, when they slammed that hospital, they killed 9 of their own people. Because the hospital is an agreed upon safe zone.
That's why I'm glad I got these videos. We're going to get to these international war crimes. And that's why I think as a Black person living in this world, I start thinking about how the law is permuted to always facilitate violence and death for certain bodies, while always being able to make other bodies being seen as the resistors of violence or being able to seen as being in self-defense. To me, the idea that Israel deserves to be able to defend itself, but Palestinians don't, to me is the one that is able to illustrate how power really operates and like who really the victims in this situation. You see what I'm saying? Anytime Hamas does anything, the media is able to characterize that as a justification for an offensive force. When you're reading about the American Revolution and you're thinking about the various ways in which the American European settlers was able to deploy different militaristic tactics on indigenous peoples here in the Americas and Turtle Island, it was always justified because they were able to literally characterize individuals trying to resist settler occupation by being the scalpers, by being the individuals that's just raiding villages, when in actuality, this is projection. You see what I'm saying? I got an individual right now, one of my former mutuals on TikTok. I ain't gonna say their name, you feel me? They can kick rocks, but they had the nerve to project to me and tell me that I'm engaging in the denial of the existence of Israel, while they're literally acting in the material resistance or the material denial of Palestine. She don't even refer to it as Palestine or Palestinian people. She referred to them as Gazan people. She referred to it as just the Gaza territory. You feel me? Just like, is it?
That's also really fucked up. The calling it, using the word Gazans is interesting. It's like 70-something% of the population in Gaza are refugees from surrounding areas that were ethnically cleansed during the Nakba. But it's just very stupid.
Sorry. I think language is important. No, don't say sorry at all. You anytime you feel compelled, fam, to fill in a little bit of historical analysis, what you know, feel me, feel free. The reason why we're doing this live is because the way we're taught in this country, all three of us know, is dictated by the people in power. We about to get to this video, Barack Obama and, you know what I'm saying, Joe Biden telling us a lot about old Palestine and old Israel and about why they have to have so much self-interest in her. And that why they would have to create an Israel if one didn't even exist. For the Bible thumpers, here goes a little trivia question. Point to me which book in the Bible referred to a piece of land as Israel. Show it to me in the Bible. Show it to me in the Bible. Shout out to you. Think before you. I'm saying what you call Zionism is for Israel. Zionism for Israel was that Nazism is for Germany. Sadly, you know what I'm saying. In this instance, I think that is a very fair, metaphor. I recognize that some individuals they see that as anti-Semitic, but goddamn, if you walk like a duck and you quack like a duck and you talk like a duck and you ducking, you a duck. Ain't no way around that. You know, it's just.
Who criticizes Israel is an anti-Semite is simply an egregious attempt to intimidate good non-Jews who are willing to stand up for what is true. If you look at the Western press, when Hong Kong demonstrators throw stones at the police in Hong Kong, that's considered to be heroism. When in Myanmar, the demonstrators throw slingshots at the army, at the oppressive army, they're considered to be heroes in the Western press. When Palestinian kids throw stones at the Israeli soldiers, they're called terrorists.
Bars.
And Israel gets away with a lot more without much less criticism in the Western press than any other country. He runs a program for Palestinian children who spend time in Israeli jails. 14, 15, 16-year-olds are jailed for months or years. Sometimes they can't see their families for months. She says, we don't have post-traumatic stress disorder here because the trauma is never post. The trauma is daily, she said. If he's got any ounce of humanity left, he would cry like I did for 2 weeks when I was there. Anybody can go on YouTube and listen to Ilan Pappé, an Israeli historian. Anybody can listen to Norman Finkelstein, a Jewish professor, world expert on Gaza.
Hey, you know I like messing around over here too, McLovin. We're always able to catch people like this that want to be, you know what I'm saying, stuck on stupid to make whataboutisms. So this is what I like, you feel me, is that sometimes the comprehension skills for individuals, they lack. The question that I asked was very specific, and the individual has shot a question, shot an answer, and the answer has missed. I said, can you name a book in the Bible that refers to a piece of land as Israel? And this person told me that Jacob's name was changed to Israel. Now, did my question entail you to ask me about a person or about a place or about a land? It's about a place or a land. I just want to, you know what I mean? Y'all have anything? Because I think I'm about to zoom him out real fast.
Denied tenure at his university because of his public speaking against Israeli policy. You can listen to any number of Israeli Defense Forces soldiers who talk about the brutality that they now regret having committed. You can listen to Israeli pilots who talk about why they refuse to fly over Gaza because of the atrocities they're made to commit. You can get all the information you want. So if anybody these days doesn't know, it's not because the information is not available. And none of that excuses not knowing truth and this deliberate attempt to silence anybody who speaks, Jewish or non-Jewish. And I really wish that non-Jews of goodwill would stand up against the calumny and not be intimidated by this charge of anti-Semitism. I really wish that. It's not a question of being pro-Palestinian. It's a question of are you in favor of justice and liberty and freedom and truth, or are you not?
Conscious, I don't know if you have access to your TikTok DMs, but I did send you a video of a former IDF soldier talking about exactly what he
I got it in here. The video you sent me, I got it in here.
This man right here. I don't know if you.
Yeah, that one right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it in here. Because I know that like Joe Biden was able to do this morning, was able to use media in a particular way to be able to stifle truth and to be able to give us a complete different narrative. When in actuality, we know that there are individuals that actually experience this shit that can tell us otherwise, that they call a first-hand accountants. You know what I'm saying? They tell us, they teach us by sources, by first-hand sources, second-hand sources, third-hand. This is a first-hand source, and man. This next video, I remember the order I had these in. This the one right here. What is this buddy? This buddy right here, bro. This bro. Let's see. This bro. Is this bro?
Nah, because what we're not gonna do.
Hey, y'all seen this one?
I haven't actually.
Yeah, this one right here. I'm real. This one right here. James, you specifically, after he's done talking, or anytime you feel free that you want him to, or anytime you feel free, I'll stop it. I know that you have a great knowledge on international relations, right? And I know that you have a understanding of how different relationships, you see what I'm saying, sometimes in terms of nation states make it where individuals do this, that, and the other. But if it give us a nice historical context, and then I think that it's going to be very important for us to give more of it. Are y'all ready?
Sure.
You feel me? Shout out to this man right here.
Fall for the same shit we did right after 9/11. Since Saturday, Western news outlets were widely sharing stories about sexual assault and beheaded babies, when now it's coming out that the IDF will refuse to provide evidence of these claims, and the LA Times had to go back and admit that the claims about sexual assault were unsubstantiated. This would not be the first time that Western governments or media have lied in order to justify war. This reminds me of the fake 1990 account of Naira al-Saba, who testified during the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait that she's...
Hey, what that was? What is that? Well, hold on. He's saying
incubator babies, I think, if it's the right one. We keep it running, but if it's what I think he's talking about, it's a really good example.
In Kuwait.
Iraqi soldiers disconnect incubators at hospitals and kill hundreds of babies. Her testimony was cited by 7 senators to justify the use of force in entering the Gulf War. Later on, though, it turned out that she was the daughter of a Kuwaiti diplomat, and that the testimony was organized by a public relations committee set up by the Kuwaiti embassy, described by the New York Times as a Washington, D.C.-based committee comprised of concerned Kuwaitis and Americans. In 2003, Bush lied to us on public TV saying Iraq had weapons of mass destruction to justify the invasion of Iraq. That turned out to be BS, and the price of that BS was hundreds of thousands of Iraqi lives. Like, remember, the U.S. and a lot of really powerful people in the U.S. have a big stake in Israel. I mean, Biden said it himself.
I'm going to play this video a couple times. Because this one right here important. I ain't going to play this one like over and over and over again right now. But I got a few times of him just reiterating this. They're going to be people that's going to be asking the question, why does America care about what's happening in the Middle East? Excuse me. Why is America sending so much money in? Why do we care? He's going to answer this question in 15 seconds.
This body for apologizing for our support for Israel. There's no apology to be made. None. It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region.
I'm begging y'all to search for...
I love it when imperialists are honest. It's honestly like the best thing ever, just seeing the mask come off. But yeah, I mean, it's really true. Like, historically, the connection between Zionism as a political ideology and movement and like imperialism broadly is like very explicit. Like early, especially like British leadership who were pushing for things like the Balfour Declaration as far back as like 1917, very much understood that like Zionism as an ideology and Zionists as kind of a settler force act as a really great bulwark against other forces in the region that might be like antithetical to British interests. This is also true of like the United States today. As Israel kind of moves from one imperial benefactor to another. But this idea that like Israel plays like a key role, and this is also something to consider when we're talking about like decolonization, right? In a lot of broader terms, is that Israel plays a key role in consistently destabilizing and interfering with the just conditions of nations all around it, whether that be Lebanon, whether that be Syria, whether that be Egypt, Algeria and Tunisia as well, like in a lot of North Africa actually. Like there, you see like Israeli interference in the politics of a lot of different countries in history, like acting as a destabilizing force in the region, as an imperialist outpost of sorts, where U.S. forces can easily like operate through or at least develop tech and tactics with. Israel plays like a really unique role in the region, as it is an outpost that assists essentially the entirety of imperialist interests. Just worth noting. You know, when we think of Israel as like from a settler colonial context, there's also like an imperialist context where there's a really big reason why we give them $3 billion something a year. It's because the payout for us is great. We can functionally destabilize and continue to stabilize Syria, for example, occupy the Golan Heights. We can historically destabilize Egypt in a way. You know, the occupation of the Sinai, for example, is a really good example, although the U.S. was in opposition to that peace. But that was more so the British and the French. As well as, you know, continued operations in Lebanon, the entire Lebanese occupation. Like, all of these destabilizing factors play into the interests of Western imperialists, and at the very least play into the interests of the Western military-industrial complex. It's like military contractors are making money doing all of this.
And we have people. So actually, from both of y'all, kind of, I'm curious, how would y'all define Zionism?
I mean, simply put, like,
you want mute, McKelvin?
Oh yeah, send it.
Zionism, as we know it today, is the establishment of a Jewish majority state in the land of Palestine. But if you're gonna get something more technical, hit James up for that one.
Yeah.
It's complicated, right? Philosophical nature of you know what I'm saying, Yahweh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, Zionism is incredibly complicated in some instances, not like to the point of where it's like, oh no, you'll never understand this. Like, there's different strains of Zionism throughout history, like cultural Zionism, labor Zionism, revisionist Zionism, etc. Fundamentally, it's a settler colonial ideology advocating for the establishment of a Jewish ethno-state. That ethno-state has, since the beginning of Zionist colonization back in the late 1880s, been in historic Palestine, right? And by effect, it's a genocidal, racist, imperialist ideology advocating for a colonial entity in historic Palestine. It's what it's molded into. That's the most simple answer I can give, right? It's basically just an ideology advocating for the establishment of a colonial project, but using Judaism as a means of obfuscating from that reality in the modern day. Traditionally, that was pretty openly understood by Zionists, that it was a colonial project. That's why a lot of Jewish people didn't like Zionism early on. That's why you had like mass anti-Zionist movements, and like the Bundist movement, for example, that saw the establishment of this kind of like imperialist project as being like antithetical, primarily a movement led by like bourgeois imperialist Jewish members. It's a very interesting, complicated history just in Jewish circles. But yeah, first, fundamentally, just a settler colonial ideology.
Yeah. I've seen a numerous of different pro-Israeli supporters, pro-Israeli content creators of Jewish descent, talking specifically and criticizing the idea of being a colonizer and being a settler. And I just recognize that we should always practice having cultural competency and being able to kind of stay in our lanes, but also recognize too that it's like, hey man, a cat is a cat. Goddamn, if it meow, you know what I'm saying, it purrs, it's probably a cat. Settler colonialism is settler colonialism. The idea that you can tell me because you have heritage to a land 2,000 years ago, it justifies you being able to displace somebody. I think that it's not only barbaric, it's asinine. Listen, I'm a Black American. I've been in America my people have been in America for 500 years. I did my little DNA test. It traced me back to Sierra Leone and Nigeria. Based off of Zionist logic and American logic and British logic that want to give land back, quote unquote, I can take my Black ass to Nigeria.
Well, it's actually funny.
And say,
hey. I mean, it's actually funny you say that, because like Zionists academically, like Zionists like kind of steal or co-opt and bastardize academic terms and like decolonial like language. In a lot of ways, you don't see Zionists calling Israel, like explicitly framing it as like a decolonial movement or land back movement until like the early mid 2000s. Historically, Zionists were like incredibly explicit about like what they were doing. Let's see, like Theodore Herzl, like more or less the founder of like modern political Zionism, was very explicit in letters to Cecil Rhodes and otherwise that like Zionism was an explicitly colonial endeavor. It's part of what it
rewind. Cecil Rhodes. Hold on. So this dude writing Cecil Rhodes, like the Rhodes Scholar, the one that killed the whole African people.
Oh yeah.
Why was they writing each other? What's their relationship?
Herzl was essentially trying to get support for British support in activating essentially the colonization of Palestine, or more so like just bolstering efforts that were already existing under the Ottoman Empire to a degree. Herzl understood that there were certain power players in England at the time that were going to be able to bolster his political efforts in trying to get British endorsement. So he lobbied Cecil Rhodes basically in this like really, I think, well-known letter, basically saying, why am I coming to you with this out of the way matter, this seemingly out of the way matter for you? It's like we're talking, but it basically says I'm coming to you because I'm advocating for something colonial, not Englishmen, but Jews, but nonetheless a colonial endeavor. And he's not the only Zionist that's like really been heavy on that language. You have Moshe Dayan calling for like a, like a enlightened colonization akin to what he considered to be like the German colonial efforts in Africa. Which is
the
awesome,
word
right?
enlightened, like he used that terminology, enlightened.
Yeah. It's like a crazy thing. Yeah, well, I mean, like every colonialist thinks like they're doing it like the best and most ethical possible way, generally, right? It's the ideological obfuscation of their actions, right?
What? Man?
Yeah. Well, and then you have like Jabotinsky is like Zev Jabotinsky is one of my like favorites as far as like quotability.
That's gonna be. I have to go wrestle with that one.
It's a really interesting like sort of dynamic at play. Let's see, Jabotinsky has a whole Iron Wall speech, basically, literally comparing Palestinians to what he called the Aztecs of Mexico and the Sioux and the Rolling Prairies, basically acknowledging that like indigenous people were never going to willingly give up their land and possessions for the sake of a colonial endeavor. Jabotinsky was like very honest about what was going on. A lot of really Zionist leaders were.
Their language didn't start to change. Again, Zionists have a very long-standing like a habit of taking legitimate movements from oppressed peoples and then assuming that, right? The same way they assume our culture, as they start wearing our kufiyas, they start putting our beats into their music. This is all something that you can see, right? They don't, and this is why there's a saying in Arabic, "Akhaduha mafrusha," right? They didn't, kick us out and demolish and build. No, they kicked us out and lived in our homes. They took it like "akhaduha mafrusha" means like they took it, spread. It's like as if you spread a dinner table and then removed the people having dinner and then sat down, started chowing down on the same food with the same plate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and when I learned that was literal, it fucked me up.
Yeah, and then the theft of that doesn't stop with the land. It doesn't stop with the culture. It doesn't stop with that. It stops with trying to similarize themselves with other oppressed groups to find that justification. Because when the early 2000s hit, now things started to becoming more broadcast. Now you can call people across the other side of the world. Now people couldn't colonize and then do it quickly and kill a bunch of people and then have people 50 years later be like, oh, that's wrong. And then by that time you say, oh, it already happened.
What is done is done. What is done is
done. They're dead. What are you going to do about it? Right. And then So now, because it's becoming more publicized, they started going into this media war, and that's why you see why the mainstream media is so defendant of them. The government is so adamant about defending them in their actions, and they want to they want to seem as similar as possible to things like the Black struggle, indigenous struggles, and then as those struggles got more popular, they aligned themselves with that. This is where you come with liberal Zionists, which is like conservative Zionists. I understand. Like I can sit in front of a conservative Zionist and be like, "You are." Well, but you are, bro. Whatever. But a liberal Zionist, because I went to a very liberal college, a liberal Zionist like fucking made me like my head turn. Like the things that they would say, and then in the same breath, be like, "Free Israel, free Israel." That's
like fascism with a.
Hey, when it pissed me off though recently is I say free Palestine and motherfuckers say free Palestine from Hamas.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a common one for online Zionists, especially in hospital fields.
So because my mom thinking like, so it's Hamas that's been holding the Palestinian people captive for the past 75 years. So it's Hamas that's denying people of water and food and electricity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Hamas.
I mean, that's a really funny thing you bring up. Like a fifth of all Palestinians were dispossessed from their lands by 1929. Hamas didn't exist until like 1987, and it's it's like maybe like we're looking at like cyclical developments of like settler colonialism and indigenous resistance to settler colonialism. And it's really funny because like Israelis do this thing where they're like, well, all of this is like due to Palestinians refusing to accept like etc. like, you know, whether it be like UN partition plans that were never even really legally binding, or like these other like Oslo Accords or what have you. It's like the colonization starts way before even the establishment of like what we today know as like Israel. Like I mean, as far back as like I think 1888, and like Balfour wasn't until 1917. There's an entire peasant revolt in 1936. Like this land acquisition, this displacement has been ongoing for generations.
Yeah, not only that, but you want to look. There's no Hamas in the West Bank. In the West Bank, we surrendered. We gave up all our weapons. We allowed them in. They occupied us. Their military forces is between our homes. They built settlements. Did the killing stop? Did the colonization stop? Did the land theft stop? Did the theft of resources stop? No, and no. No matter what they do, they are going to do what they do. It just depends on how quick they do it. If we fight back, they find their justification and they do it much quicker than usual. And then if we stay, if we Martin Luther King this thing,
you just take it. If you turn the other cheek and take a lick, they just, you know.
That's what I'm saying. Like
dash slowly and then take it anyway.
You know what I'm saying? The way I can describe it is the West Bank is Martin Luther King style, and the Gaza Strip is Malcolm X style.
But everybody gonna die in the end.
And they. Of course, James. I know you give me
You're chilling.
We say it like that. You know what I mean? Everybody get killed. Everybody gets seen as a threat.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the West Bank, you know, had a few intifadas, uprisings where they fought back, and that was, you know, that led to a few things here and there. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to like put them both clearly like next to each other and be like these are two completely similar things. What I'm trying to say is, Hamas is not there, and it never stops. Just the only thing that happened is that the rate of theft and death are slowed down just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The rate of death slowed down. The theft ramped up. They're still stealing that shit, but like the rate of death kind of kicked down a little bit.
You can live while taking your shit now. I used to kill you and take your shit. Now you can live and watch me take your shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then in Gaza, the death toll ramps up, but they still maintained that 20-mile strip of land because we said they basically said, you know, either you want it, come take it.
Yeah, I mean, one could argue that the entirety, like the only reason the Palestinians still have any land is due to a legacy of like very intense and sustained armed resistance. Like the idea that Israel would ever just like kind of allow for any kind of independent entity within the borders in which it has already designated as part of its own project is crazy, which makes the liberal two-state solution kind of framework even funnier in a lot of ways, because it assumes like things that just aren't materially realistic at all. But
Lee, I'm gonna send you a video on your TikTok. I don't know if you can play it.
Yeah. So I go to it right now.
I have to get going because I have to go. I got a little bit of a family thing going on, but it was great talking with both of y'all.
James,
Appreciate you, bro, for sure.
I appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming on. Well, I swear to God, bro, your insight, there's no words. Love you, man.
I'll see y'all later.
You too, man.
I don't know what the hell. If I say, whoa, I'm trying to get to the video right here.
I sent you a new video. It's a picture of an old resistance group, black and white. I don't know if you can see it.
Now I want to see the last thing I got from you right here is the Israel. I got it right.
Yeah, you got it right.
All right, I can put that on. Put that on. And then I really realized too that I think that I didn't think this all the way through. I put so many videos in.
If you can, that's fine. That's fine.
No. I'm talking about for my videos that I made. Like I put so many in that was like, I don't know, I'm gonna be able to get through all the videos I made. But how long? Give us who is this? His name is Ghassan Kanafani.
This man, his name is Ghassan. He was part of a resistance group early on during and after the Nakba. So this is an interview by a British reporter with him, asking him to talk and X, Y, and Z, and he's gonna basically describe,
Okay.
To see if you can stop at any time.
How long I'm trying to do? Oh man, bam, turn over, bam.
The history of the world is always the history of weak people fighting strong people, of weak people who has a correct case fighting strong people who use their strength to exploit the weak. These people, the Palestinian people, prefer to die standing than to lose its case. We achieved proving that the king is wrong. We achieved proving that this nation is going to continue fighting till victory. We achieved that our people could never be defeated. We achieved teaching every single person in this world that we are a small, brave nation who are going to fight to the last drop of blood to put justice for ourselves after the world failed in giving it to us. This is what we achieved. The history of the world is always the history of weak people fighting strong.
My bad, man. I must got lost in that right there. I think it's important that we always show the voices and the people of resistance movements. And I think that when I was talking to you before we got into this, and I was telling you about how I went to the Boston Tea Party. I went to the little Boston Tea Party tour. And you feel me? White folks said, you know what I'm saying? Shit, oppression makes a wise man mad. Excuse me, I had too many drinks. I'm over burping too much. Excuse me. But I think that the way in which even the comment section right now, people keep on asking, can you talk about BLM support of Hamas? To me, it's like, how are the people in Palestine supposed to resist? If Israel has the right to defend itself, how are the people of Palestine supposed to resist? And if you were born and raised in the Gaza Strip that's on land, air, sea, strike, blockade, prison, what would you do? How would you do it?
The thing is, Lee, it's, we have to redefine. And recently, and this is something, I'll be honest with you, this is something that was taught to me by Black Lives Matter activists, such as yourself, right? And we have to redefine what violence is.
Oh God.
You have to redefine what violence is. A lot of people want to see the status quo wants to make you think that the only form of violence is bodily harm. And this is false, because starving somebody is a form of violence, whether you like it or not. Restricting healthcare is a form of violence. Restricting someone's wealth and ability to move up and ability to build and communities is a form of violence. It's not just
allowing somebody to go home.
Not allowing somebody to go home and
return home.
There's plenty of violence that happened, physical bodily harm violence that is denied constantly, but when you restrict 2 million people, half of them being kids, inside a 20-mile strip, and force them to live that way in hopes that they turn against their government and surrender to you just for you to steal their land anyway, this is an egregious form of violence.
Definitely.
There is way worse fates in life than death. And this is one of the most worst forms of violence is that economical and bodily torture, where you sit there and yeah, I like the only thing I can describe it to. There's even a form of torture where if you stick somebody in a 2x2 room and close the door and close off the lights and leave him there for a few days, he'll go insane. And this is no matter, it doesn't matter that you didn't strike this person, but you commit an act of violence, right? And so how do you respond to that? And I'm telling you, the Palestinians did it all. We talked. We went to the UN. We went to the world. We went to we tried to fight back, and every single time it was thwarted. And now the microscope is, well, how are you why would you resist this way, right? Again, this you can go back to, how MLK's nonviolence stance. His nonviolent stance, and you can make those parallels as well. But I could leave it at that.
Yeah, and it's also important to recognize the parallels here too. That the Palestinians have cried, they've whined, they've sent petitions, they've peacefully protested, they've sent letters, they've made videos, they've rapped, they've seen. They've, shit, they did everything, you know what I mean? So at some point, to me, it starts to become the same way when it comes to black people. When we start burning shit down, all of a sudden we start being painted as being the crazy people. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of individuals a part of the, diaspora, you know what I mean?
Even during the Black Lives Matter protests, the question was why they got to destroy property. Why the question became is, if you're going to protest, why are you going to protest like this, right? And it takes away from the conversation, why are these people protesting in the first place? Why are they so angry? Is it possible that these people just went out of their houses out of nowhere over the death of one individual and they started destroying half the country? Is that really the narrative we're going to go with? Or is there something else going on here? Is there a history of oppression? Is there a history of incarcerations? Is there a history of fucked up shit? Is there a history of? But no, let's ignore all that and focus. Let's zoom in. It's almost like it's almost manipulative, because in a way they're agreeing, they're confirming that you're oppressed. But now the question is, why'd you have to do that?
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's like, yeah, you are oppressed. You are under a blockade.
But how you gonna resist though? How you gonna resist? How you gonna resist? I remember, man, I feel like one of the first times I really just went off on TikTok and not gave a fuck was in 2020. Actually, it was the end of 2019. I had white conservatives that was bombarding me by the hundreds. You see what I'm saying? And it was like they had more beef with how I was responding to racism than the racists themselves. Yeah. I think that when it comes to thinking about what's going on right now in Palestine, you feel me? I feel like it's way more energy being put on the individuals resisting than we even thinking about the motherfuckers that's making where they have to resist in the first place. Mm-hmm. And to me, just the most disingenuous, unethical thing is starting the presence of Israel, or Israel being able to be violent, with the idea of them defending themselves. It's almost like intelligent design. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Me, it showed me that settler colonialism is set up in that way. Because what we also know is that there were a lot of offensive attacks against Black South Africans that was done in the name of white South Africans being able to defend themselves. When in actuality, it's like, hey, your mere presence here. Your presence here, literally, it necessitates violence. So if you got beef towards violence, the violence shouldn't start when you feel like your body and your people will start to be impacted. The violence should start as soon as it started. Which started with your body. It started with your idea that, hey, I'm going to be here and that my presence is needed here. That's when the violence started. And when I'm recognizing when it comes to Palestine, you feel me, Palestine, every occupation of it, That's what it's starting on. Is this that now we seeing people engage in the Western idea that the Arabic Muslim is always already the terrorist to be feared, and that they're irrational decision makers, and that because they're irrational decision makers, of course, whatever position, you know what I'm saying, the Arab is in, they put themselves in there. You know what I'm saying? And I thought you made a video made me really think like, okay, it's really how the Western world view Arab people. You either poor, crazy, wild, terrorists, or you rich and you getting Arab money. Ain't no in between. And I think that when we start thinking about like Iran, the Arab United Emirates or UAB, whatever you call this shit, Egypt, all the rest of these countries, I feel like all of them is seen as one or the other. You either seen as Arab money or you seen as jihad terrorists. Ain't no in between.
Evidence and not fall into the emotional traps laid by Zionists, arms dealers, imperialists, and war criminals that will allow them to justify their ongoing 70-year genocide against the Palestinian people. Because let's remember what Malcolm X warned us about. If you're not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people being oppressed and loving the people doing the oppressing.
Yep.
Just
Jewish people are not indigenous.
Hey, this the one right here. Have you seen this one?
Yeah, I have. This guy, his name is Chris. I was trying to get him on here too. It was actually
yeah. I seen Chris had responded to this video and said like, you know, this is a video he regret making, but he regret making it not because he still agreed with everything, he still stand behind everything he said, but he was like he felt like it was insulting people. My take on this video, I didn't see it as that, but of course I'm not the one that's gonna be insulted by watching this video. You feel me? It's probably only people love, you know what I'm saying, Jewish descent. I think it's still very important to think about the definition of indigeneity and how indigenous and that the concept of indigeneity is being reappropriated here to be able to justify displacement, and acknowledging that heritage and indigenous is not the same thing. Having heritage to a land and being indigenous to the land is not the same thing. And what we see right now is that the Zionist project is trying to piss on our hands and tell us it's raining by trying to conflate these two concepts of indigeneity and heritage.
Again, it's
my bad, what Jay?
It's what I talked about before. It's another way where they try to hijack terminology from oppressed people, including indigenous communities in America. Which these are terms that are most closely related to them. And then when they start smoothing that terminology, using it in their favor, then it becomes, you know what I'm saying, something. And this is where a lot of liberals in America who stand with Zionism, they use these types of justifications, stuff like that.
I agree with you, man. I think that the Lord and the ancestors blessed me where I ain't never came across a liberal Zionist in this way in real life. Because I feel like I'll be ready to intellectually fry their ass. I'm talking about intellectually on your ass. I'm about to run your shit through the mud. I'm about to literally mop the floor with your inconsistent logic. Yeah. It's an oxymoron to me, the idea of being a liberal Zionist. It's like, what? But don't think about it, though. There are a lot of liberals and leftists that believe in manifest destiny, believe in the settler colonial project of America. They believe in the order and sanctity of social order in terms of white supremacy. You feel me? It's just that as long as you can, do it in a nice way, then, it's cool. The last thing I say in this rant before I let this dude finish this shit, when Barack Obama was drone striking predominantly Muslim communities for 8 years, and liberals was quiet on that shit, and then Donald Trump brought his orange ass up here and said that he gonna ban all Muslims, and then all of a sudden liberals want to convince us they care about Muslims. I seen this shit. I knew it was cap. I knew it was false. And I think that it's now showing right now, actually. All of the liberals, they claim they give a fuck about Muslims. You don't have that same energy now that Joe Biden is literally facilitating violence towards Muslim populations. You see what I'm saying? And to me, I think that speaks volumes, and it fits very nicely into how this shit working in terms of indigeneity.
Exactly.
To claim otherwise is a complete perversion of what the term indigenous means. Indigeneity is not about being able to trace your heritage to a land. As a British person who has lived in Britain for a long time, I am not an indigenous person. British people more generally would not use this term. You will notice that it tends to be limited to Aboriginal communities and the indigenous natives of North and South America. Just look at the Cambridge definition of indigenous, used to refer to or relating to the people who originally lived in a place, rather than people who moved there from somewhere else. It is quite literally impossible without mental gymnastics to see Israel as anything else. In 1882, there were 24,000 Jewish people, and by 1948, when the state of Israel...
That stat right there to me was important. When I was on the live, I kept on asking the question, what was the legal reality of Jewish people living in Palestine before the Balfour Act and before, you know what I'm saying, all this shit was jumping out. The fact that we were able to identify there were over 24,000 Jewish people living in Palestine at that time, you see what I'm saying? To me, it showed me that there is, I feel like that's the criticism of the ethno state. Because we can acknowledge now that, hey, this, like you said, we talked on the phone, hey, this part of the world is the center of the world in many different instances. It's been colonized by many different hands, and we recognize and acknowledge that, hey, that Christians, Jewish people, and Muslims have a nativity here in some instances. You see what I'm saying? The idea, though, that Jewish people are more deserving of the land than Palestinian people, it's baffling to me.
A lot of this too ties back to, okay, so like to answer your question, the justification, there was no justification. The justification was that before, at the time of the Balfour Declaration and before, right, as it was controlled by Britain controlled the immigration process there, and if somebody wanted to just move there, they just did, right? And I mean, it was there was some talk about funneling some people there to increase the population. It ramped up after the Balfour Declaration, all that stuff, and then it ramped up extra after World War II for obvious reasons, right? But the point is, they did this without consulting the people who are living there, right? A country accepting refugees is one thing, but a country accepting refugees who want to create their own state on top of your state, that's another thing entirely. This is the equivalent of, this is like, a bunch of Syrian refugees coming into America, and then they take over Rhode Island. They say this shit is ours, and we're making new Syria over here. You know what I'm saying? And if that happened, the entire force of the American military would just absolutely go ballistic on that type of agreement like that. So it's like, I mean, that's a whole thing. That's a whole thing entirely.
The whole thing. I just to me it'd be the same thing, man. As listen, man, Ghana and Nigeria right now got policies inviting African Americans, giving us all type of incentives to come back. That'd be the same idea of African Americans taking their ass to Ghana and being like, you know what, the Ghanaian government, we appreciate y'all for inviting us over here and shit, but we're gonna make our own government actually, and we're gonna police and govern ourselves on y'all shit, even though y'all invited us over here. To me, that would be the same equivalence to that, but it's just still, you feel me, very, 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 very important to just say this rhetorically. America and Britain is trying to convince us they want to give land back. Britain and America is trying to convince us they care about the people that was on land thousands of years first. I think that the Palestinians, you feel me? Not only Palestinians, the Hawaiians, the New Zealanders, the Australians, the indigenous Americans, goddamn, the Aztecs, the Maya people, the tribal people, is thinking like, hold on now. We got religious texts as well that say that our land and these monuments on this land is important to us. Why do y'all put so much significance and value on the way in which Jewish people talked about what God told them, but y'all don't have that same energy for what the Blackfoot people said that their guys told them about, you feel me, shit, that little area I got carved up with Mount Everest? How come y'all don't have that same energy when it comes to the, you know what I'm saying, the Choctaw people that come from Mississippi to tell you that, hey, they ancestors said they come from the mud of Mississippi. Y'all don't have that same energy. And to me, that's what blows my mind and why I call cap on this whole idea of a civil, a whole idea of a holy war, and that, no, these are God's people and this is God chosen people. Like, nah, man. In a world, in a country that has freedom of religion, what does it mean to try to justify a piece of land being given to somebody through the lens of God? And it's like, hey, what if I don't believe in God that way? What if I believe in another God? Y'all playing games, man. Playing them games. Man.
Dynamic that Jewish people from Europe moved to Palestine in order to create a new society and dispossess the Palestinian people who were the pre-existing population. The Balfour Declaration that was ratified in 1917 by the British declaring support for a Jewish homeland said that the support would never harm the indigenous communities that were existing there. However, the truth of the matter is that it was always known that this was going to harm the pre-existing Palestinian communities. The King Crane Commission, organised by America in August of 1919, advised a reconsideration of the Balfour Declaration and said that establishing a Jewish state cannot be accomplished without the gravest trespasses upon the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine. The claim that all Jewish people are indigenous to Palestine is fantastical at best. It completely ignores what indigeneity actually is and relies on the fact that people have no understanding of the importance of settler colonialism. Moreover, even in the law of the State of Israel, it doesn't recognize this heritage as being the important part of moving to Israel. The law of return states that it allows every Jewish person to immigrate to Israel and automatically become a citizen of the state. The law also applies to the children and grandchildren of Jews, as well as their spouses and the spouses of their children and grandchildren. Part of being indigenous, and the reason that other groups like the Native Americans work so closely with the Palestinians, is cultural resistance against a dominant oppressor. If you do not think that Israel is the dominant oppressor as a military superpower with nuclear arms, then you are just being disingenuous. I am not denying that Jewish people have heritage within the land and history, but this does not make them the indigenous group. Zionist propagandists know the power of the settler-colonial dynamic as an explanatory tool for understanding what is happening in Palestine. The settler-colonial dynamic is so powerful because it destroys the uniqueness of the idea of Israel. It makes it so that you cannot make these fantastical claims that somehow this heritage that Jewish people have gives them a special connection to the land. I must also remind you that the European settlers of America felt that God had given them the right to settle the land. This is often called manifest destiny, an ideology which is akin to Zionism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And to McLovin, after you say what you're gonna say, I think that I'm gonna take you up on your offer, bro. Like, I think that I'm convinced right now, because we only got the 10 number right here, that I might have put too many bad words in the title of this video. We definitely being shadow banned right now, being shadow banned, suppressed. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, we gonna I feel like I'm gonna let you wrap this up, but definitely you're gonna teach me how to set it up on TikTok. And
I got you. On TikTok, you have to be a little bit more careful on
words,
stuff like that, and I'll walk you through it. But definitely, I'll tell you something for real. Meta, Facebook, and YouTube are definitely extensions of you know what. All right.
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up with saying this.
Oh, hold on. I lied. One more. I got one more.
How Israel intentionally funded and propped up Hamas into power, and why?
Gotta do this.
Please spread this video.
Gotta do this. I gotta play this.
Especially right-wing Israelis, wanted to undermine the power of the dominant Palestinian political force at that time, the nationalist PLO, at the heart of which was the secular Fatah party of Yasser Arafat, their bête noire.
بغصن الزيتون في يدي وببندقية الثائر في يدي
By empowering Sheikh Yassin and the Muslim Brotherhood, Israeli leaders thought they could divide and rule the occupied Palestinians, play them off against each other, secular nationalists against religious Islamists. So in 1978, when Yassin wanted to officially register his Islamic Association, which was basically the precursor to Hamas, the Israelis were only too keen to help. Yassin built and grew a network of Islamist social institutions across Gaza, including schools and clubs and mosques, and Israel helped fund some of those projects. Most American politicians have no clue about any of this, although the former Republican Congressman Ron Paul once made this point on the floor of the House.
Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat.
Arafat himself told an Italian newspaper, quote, Hamas is a creature of Israel. He even claimed that former Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin admitted as much to him, calling it a fatal error. Now, you might be wondering, why should I believe mad Ron Paul or the famously shady Yasser Arafat? Well, you don't have to. You can believe top Israeli and US officials who've basically owned up to all this. Brigadier Yitzhak Segev, for example, who was the Israeli military governor in Gaza, and later told a New York Times reporter that he helped finance the Islamic movement. The Israeli government gave me a budget, he said, and the military government gives to the mosques. Colonel David Hakam, who worked in Gaza in the late 1980s as an Arab affairs expert in the Israeli military, has admitted that the original sin was Israeli support for Yassin in the late 70s. But at the time, he has argued, nobody thought about the possible results. Well, Avner Cohen did. Cohen was the Israeli official who was responsible for religious affairs in Gaza for more than 2 decades, and who now says, quote, Hamas, to my great regret, is Israel's creation. Yeah, Cohen's words. He wrote an official report to his superiors in the mid-1980s, warning them not to play divide and rule in the occupied territories and calling on Israel to, quote, break up this monster before this reality jumps in our face.
Israel was attempting to destabilize the leftist organization, the Palestine Liberation Organization. You know, the Palestine Liberation Organization that met with Black Panther Party members in 1969. This is what happens when you bolster up right-wing extremist organizations to destabilize leftist movements. I have no words.
Yep. Again, in very similar fashion, with the United States and the Taliban in the United States and other groups where they fund them, right? The Taliban
to pay America and Fidel Castro, and America and just like a lot of ways we try to prop up different governments to try to make sure we got a puppet, and sometimes the puppet don't goddamn do what you want it to do.
Yep. I'll leave you guys off with this, and in the terms of indigeneity, man. There's a very common saying in Palestine. It says, land you have to kill for is not yours. It's land you have to die for. That's yours. So I'll leave you guys with that. It's a profound thing. I think about it all the time. Land you have to kill for is not yours. Land you die for is. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I did. I enjoyed this. Lee, I'm gonna have to get you on TikTok, man. I'm gonna have to
definitely, bro. I definitely owe you one on TikTok. I can come on your shit. You feel me? And yeah, bro. Definitely.
I'm down. TikTok does it. I'll walk you through it. Probably not tonight, but tomorrow. If you got
time right now,
I'll let
you got my number, bro. You got my number now, so we locked in. You be locked in. You got my number. You got my number now, man. I'm gonna play with my video if I let them out, though. You know what I'm saying? I had so many videos. I feel like when I made all these videos, put all these videos together, I think I was so pissed off and mad and anxious and excited and just moved that I was just like, But now I'm realizing, like, sir, you crazy in your head. You thought you was finna get through all these damn videos in an hour and a half. You crazy. But yeah.
We're with the Palestinian resistance 100%. No ifs, no ands, no buts, no equivocations, no apologies, no condemnations. We don't need to go any further than that, right? Some people want to criticize the table manners of a starving person. You don't criticize the table manners of a starving person. You let them eat, right? You want to talk about, well, they shouldn't be doing things this way or they should be doing things that way. All right, get your boot off my neck and then we'll talk. right? And it's like this occupation has been going on for however many years. Stop the occupation and then we'll talk. Then we can talk about table manners. Then we can talk about this tactic and that tactic, right? But what happens is every single time is that we zoom in on the details and we forget about the bigger picture. And that's why we say Palestine has to be free first, period. And then we'll talk.
Lee, if you can, I'm so sorry, man.
One of the many reasons I have unequivocally.
You say what?
I'm sorry. I just sent you a video to your TikTok. It's one more Ghassan video if you wanna play it. But that was the video that I originally wanted to send you. I just sent it. It might take a little bit.
No, I got it.
You got it. Now listen to this. This is a very famous video that goes around within Palestinian circles. You want?
So hey, too. I'm curious. So if one was to I guess want some Palestinian food, what is considered what's Palestinian food? What's some a Palestinian dish? What y'all known for?
You live in Houston, right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
There's a lot of Palestinians in Houston. I'll send you a couple restaurants. Hummus, falafel. We have really good barbecue. We have our own way to make barbecue and stuff like that. I'll send you. I know a couple of guys in Houston and Dallas. They'll take you around to a couple Palestinian spots.
Yeah, I'm trying to mess around. I'm trying to fuck around for sure.
Nah, it's definitely good food for sure.
Hell yeah. I definitely know it's good food. Cause shit, I seen a white dude from New Jersey. A white man from New Jersey, bro. I'm talking about a white man from New Jersey, bro.
Uh-huh.
This motherfucker took his ass over there to Israel. Really closer to the Gaza strips type shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This Palestinian woman confronted this man.
Mm-hmm.
He stole her house. What you talking about stealing? He stole her house. Legit stole her shit.
Yeah.
Said that if I didn't steal it, somebody else would. And was dead ass he meant
yeah, I did. I don't. The Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu, was born in Brooklyn, bro. He's from Brooklyn. I swear to God, I can't make it up, bro.
Oh shit! Oh shit! What Brooklyn at?
I'm telling you, when you see those videos of those people with straight up American accents, they're literally from Brooklyn. They're literally from Brooklyn, from Queens, from LA, who come there. They have dual citizenships, and they just take your shit.
Nah, fam. I gotta pull this vibe and show this video now. Though. I gotta Nahetnahu, whatever your name is, Nahatnahu. Fam, you from Brooklyn, bro.
I don't know if it was Netanyahu. It was a few. Most of their government officials were born somewhere else. I'm telling you, they weren't even there.
Don't even surprise me though. Okay,
hold on.
He was born in
hold on.
Petavica.
Yeah, that's but go ahead, play that video. Play that video. Let me see what that is.
You don't mean exactly peace talks. You mean capitulation, surrendering.
Why not just talk?
Talk to whom?
Talk to the Israeli leaders.
That's kind of conversation between the sword and the neck.
Well, if there were no swords and no guns in the room, you could still talk.
No, I had never seen any talk between a colonialist case and a national liberation movement.
But despite this, why not talk?
You see, notice.
Talk about what?
Notice how dismissive
talk about the possibility of not fighting.
Oh damn! I ain't know everyone showing.
Not fighting for what?
Not fighting at all, no matter what for.
Yeah, people usually fight for something and they stop fighting for something. So you can't tell me even why should we speak about what?
Stop fighting.
Or talk about stop fighting. Why?
Talk to stop fighting, to stop the death and the misery, the destruction, the pain.
The misery and the destruction and the pain and the death of whom?
Of Palestinians, of Israelis, of Arabs.
Of the Palestinian people who are uprooted, thrown in the camps, living in starvation, killed for 20 years, and forbidden to use even the name Palestinians.
They're better that way than dead, though.
Maybe to you, but to us, it's not. To us, to liberate our country, to have dignity, to have respect, to have our mere human rights is something as essential as life itself.
Israelis.
You don't mean exactly peace talks, you mean capitulation, surrendering.
Why not just talk?
Talk to whom?
Talk to the Israeli leaders.
That's kind of conversation between the sword and the neck.
I had to hear him say that one more time. Like, he's so blunt saying it. It's like,
but you see how dismissive he is. He said this is a conversation between the sword and the neck, and he goes on to go, well, what if there's no weapons in the room? Like he's treating him like an idiot. You get what I'm trying to say?
Definitely is.
Like
So
he doesn't know what he
being
means.
very patronizing to him. He's talking down to him. He's treating him like a child. Almost in the point where it's like, okay, you have these scenarios. What if this? What if this? What if this? What is this? It's like, listen, man, I ain't never heard no nationalist movement talking to the goddamn colonizer and having a conversation. When you say talk, you mean surrender. You mean give up. You mean be decapitated.
Yeah.
I ain't doing that. We ain't doing that at all. We understand very much what's going on. You know what I'm saying? You know, just and what's Buddy's name again? What's his name?
Ghassan.
Was he assassinated as well, bro?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. All of them were at some point. All of them were.
Pretty much. So if it's a Palestinian,
even on the other side, any Israeli official that ever wanted to condone a peace talk, they were also assassinated. They assassinated on both sides. Even their own. I mean, the guy. I mean,
I looked it up too. I think what it is that Netanyahu was the prime minister, but this president they have right now is the first president to be born in Israel. All the rest of the presidents.
What happened? Like, okay, Netanyahu, he's from Philadelphia. Like he grew up in Philadelphia. Some of them are born there, but then they take them to Philadelphia because their family don't even fucking live there. Like they're you know what I'm saying? They're born in Philadelphia, whatever. Some of them born straight up in Brooklyn. The American accent.
Yeah, dog. Just
you know what I'm saying?
That shit right there blow my mind. Like, sir, if you don't take your ass back to the settler colonial state that you already, you know what I'm saying? Goddamn, what the hell? This gonna be the last one for real. Cause you know how I just think that having multiple voices on here, and sometimes you feel me when you have the individuals that's getting the most of the humanity, you have them speak to humanity. Sometimes it works. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it works, McLovin. Sometimes, not all the time, damn it, not all the times, but sometimes it works. You see what I'm saying? Sometimes it does.
And Hamas. And yet somehow I am also in favor of Palestinian liberation. How could that be? Two things can be true at the same time. Just imagine that. Imagine not being a fucking cheerleader for religious factions, warmongers, and politicians. By that I mean, I am Jewish, but I will not let that cloud my judgment and recognize the fact that the Israeli government has mistreated and subjugated Palestinian people for decades. Right? Like, listen, I am an American. I can also recognize the fact that America has committed atrocities across the world. I am not going to be a blind cheerleader for America any more than I am not going to be a blind cheerleader for Israel, just because I happen to be Jewish or just because I happen to be American. And blaming all Palestinians for the actions of Hamas is just ignorant. Yes, they elected Hamas. That was in 2006, 17 years ago. The median age of Palestinians in Gaza Strip is about 18 years old. So here's my son. He's 3 months old. That's like holding him accountable for all of the actions of the US government. It doesn't make any sense. use your critical thinking skills. Absolve yourself of all of the labels that you have and all of the shit that you're supposed to think, and just think like a human.
Education is elevation. We're gonna be in touch, McLovin, because y'all definitely we're gonna do a part 2, but it's gonna be exclusively on TikTok. I see Facebook and YouTube and let me down on this one today. I was bragging, talking about we was gonna have some people in this mug. No, hell nah. You being pro Palestine, and you got a What it is we got too much color on here. You feel me? I can't be a Negro and a Palestinian together. You feel me? It's too much. It's too much. It's too much. Too much. It's too much. It's too much.
I saw you're live on TikTok. Yeah, like about 1,000 people in there, man.
Yeah, that's why I should stay on TikTok.
Tell you, I'm gonna let you know. I'm gonna let you know how to set it up. Probably tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah,
you know how to set it up, and then we'll go from there. But I appreciate you, man, for having me on your platform. It's an honor and it's a blessing, man. So
yeah, man, appreciate you, bro. Yeah, this will be here. So if you want to make some clips or something like that, if you wanted to, it'll be here for you, man. I'm definitely looking forward to having us a TikTok live. Last time I was TikTok live, I was on that mug. I had a woman that was on that mug praying for me in Arabic. I was talking to a hell of people on that mug last time.
I saw.
She was doing a lot, but she was, you know what I'm saying, she had good intentions, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're I'll talk to you about that. That's low key. That's right. Low key, that was a little bit
we getting out.